is Bub Means birthday Dynasty stats. How about that in today's video? Quick announcement, we do have our Discord open. Link is in the description on how to join. Whatever fantasy football, dynasty, redraft, whatever question you have, we will help you and answer, and we'll hopefully put together some listener leagues. But without further ado, we're jumping in today's video. Someone asked me in a comment in another video if I can make one of these on Bub Means, and I'm a man of the people. So I am going to make one on Bub Means. And also, he's an intriguing potential dynasty rookie stash, taxi squad, or for deeper leagues heading into the training camp season. We're about a month away, maybe less, 3 weeks away from training camp starting up. It is June 27th. So keep that in mind. And we're going to jump right into it. Bub Means the rookie receiver, 5th round pick, drafted to the New Orleans Saints. 6'2", 215. Really, really good size for a receiver. You see his 2023 stats there, 41 catches, 721 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That may not seem impressive. However, and I'm going to get to this later on, but that was 32% of Pitt's passing offense, both yards and touchdowns, was recorded by Bub Means. So he was basically a third of Pitt's passing offense. They obviously didn't have a great passing offense. Again, goes 5th round to the New Orleans Saints, which is an intriguing landing spot, which is why I'm making this video. You look at the combine numbers there, runs a 4.43, really good speed. His 10-yard split is fine. Again, I keep mentioning this, but 10-yard splits, if you look at how valuable certain combine drills are in predicting future success, 10-yard splits are actually very valuable for all positions. They show you how fast you are within the first 10 yards of the 40-yard dash. And the reason why it's valuable is because most players, running backs, wide receiver, tight end, are not running 40 yards straight down the field. There's a lot more times when they're running 10 yards. So his is good, not great. We want to see this number below 1.55 to be considered good. And the closer you get to 1.52 is like great. Anything above 1.55 is a little bit concerning. 1.55 is fine. It's right. It's the worst where you want to be, essentially. And then his vertical is 39.5. Really good vertical there. Really, really good vertical. And vertical is one of those drills. It's like hand size, 10-yard split, and like vertical are like the three most valuable combine things measured at the combine in terms of fantasy success for wide receivers. His vertical, which does show explosiveness, is at 39.5, which is in the 80th, somewhere in the 80s in terms of percentile. And I did mention it. His how hand size is important. He actually has a really his hands are very big, which is good for a receiver, right? Because you need to catch the ball. Again, we look at some of the production numbers here for Bub Means. Career dominator percentage. Once again, dominator, what that means for a receiver is what percentage of your team's passing offense are you responsible for. And over his career, basically over 3 seasons. He was in college for 5 years, but he didn't really play his first 2 years. He didn't really record any stats, actually, his first 2 years. And then it was really his last 3 years where he started to record some stats. Over the last 3 years, I believe that's 1 year at Louisiana Tech and 2 years at Pitt. He accounted for 20% of his team's passing offense, which is the number, it's the minimum we want to see is the 20%, this career dominator. Again, I went back and looked at every wide receiver, fantasy relevant wide receiver since 2010, every fantasy relevant wide receiver since 2010, and looked at their career dominators in college, and there were only 2 receivers out of 78 that had a career dominator of under 20%. Terry McLaurin and Jalen Waddle. Those were the 2. And you can kind of see why they both went to big-time schools with big-time players there, right? Bub Means did not go to a big-time school, so it's good to see him hit that 20% threshold. Most of it was because of his last season where he recorded a single season high of 32%, which is a really, really good number to see. Now, he had a little bit of an interesting career. He actually played, he transferred twice. He started his college career at Tennessee, transferred, went to Louisiana Tech in the COVID season. And so not only did you transfer to a new school, but it was the COVID season where everything was screwed up, right? Everything was screwed up. So it was just kind of bad timing there. for him, unfortunately. So his first 2 years, he didn't even record a stat in terms of receiving or rushing or anything. Maybe as a kick returner, but he didn't record a stat his first 2 years. And again, COVID and transferring and things like that played into it. And then his second year at Louisiana Tech, he started to pick up and produce. And then he was pretty productive his couple years at Pitt, especially last year. Breakout age of 22. Again, we want to see this breakout age of 20 or lower. We want to see younger players dominating at a younger age, right? There's not many players of those 78 fantasy relevant wide receivers that I told you about. There's only there's a small percentage of them that have a breakout age of 21 or older, right? I mean, Michael Thomas, Kenny Galladay, Deontay Johnson, McLaurin, guys like that were all kind of had Brandon Ayuk. And so it is possible. It's just we want to generally see that at age 20 or lower. But COVID kind of messed things up. And this is kind of the last draft class that should be affected by the COVID year. You see his PFF grade there at 72, which is good. Yards per route run, 2.14 is solid. It's a solid number there. It's not amazing, but it's not bad. It's kind of like average to above average for college receivers coming into the NFL. ADOT at 16.9 is pretty high. So he was kind of a field stretcher in his career. His 3 years at, his last year at Louisiana Tech, he averaged 19.5 yards per reception. His first year at Pitt, 15 yards per reception. And last year at Pitt, 17.6 yards per reception. So he's kind of used as a down the field, stretch the field type of player. But I do think he can kind of be a little bit more than that. Yeah. Which we'll get into in terms of my film analysis. Just to finish up some of this advanced stats here. His drop percentage is 7.2. That's fine. Ideally, we want to see it a little bit lower, but 7.2 is nothing to be worried about. Yak per reception is 5.5 is pretty good. Is pretty good there. I mean, pretty good after the catch. Contested catch percentage at 47.5% is good. We want to see that at 45% or higher, right? That's kind of the low. Even 40% we can live with, but anything below 40 is bad. Anything above 45% is pretty good, and then anything above 50 is amazing. So his was at 47.5%, which is good. And then his contested target percentage. This is a number. If you guys have watched these videos, this is a number that I'm looking more into to kind of track and see how it correlates to fantasy success. This is the percentage of your targets that were contested, right? Percentage of your targets that were contested. And why I think this might be an important stat is because if you have a low number here, below 15%, a lot of that is on you in terms of your speed, your explosiveness off the line, and your route running ability. If you're a really good route runner and you're super explosive off the line, you're going to juke out your defender. You're going to create space between the defender and you, and you're going to have a target that's not contested, right? So where do we want to see this number, contested target percentage? We want to see it below 20%. We really want to see it below 15%, but below 20 is okay. Above 20, we're starting to get a little bit concerned there potentially. His is at 24%. Now, is it the be all end all, right? Is this like, oh, yeah, he's done, he's no good? No, of course not. It's not the be all end all. Not even close, because guys like Puka Nacua had 22%. In his college career. Jaden Reed, 20%. George Pickens, 24%. Nico Collins had 32%. So there's guys that are still productive. So again, we want to see this. And this does translate a little bit to, in my opinion, something that he needs to work on, which is his route running ability. He's not a great route runner. And I think that kind of plays into the fact of, he's not running himself open. Real quick here, yards per route run by scheme, 1.64 for man, 2.49 for zone is good. Much better against zone than man, which is important because in the NFL, teams are running 60 to 70% zone coverage. So we want to see you be better at zone. We want to see you good at both, but we want to see you better at zone. And then just a quick note here, he played a majority on the outside, 563 snaps to 45. Now, what I saw in the film was, again, I saw a pretty impressive athlete, a guy that can jump, he can run, get down the field. His acceleration and top speed is impressive, which means he could, at the very least, he's going to be a field stretcher in the NFL. Now, unfortunately for fantasy football, that doesn't translate very well, right? Unless, every now and then you get the odd season where like these field stretchers are putting up fantasy relevant seasons. But for the most part, these field stretchers are very valuable to NFL teams, but they're not very valuable for us because the volume is not there for fantasy football. He's good with the ball in his hands. He has really good agility. Again, great leaping ability with his vertical jump. He's very good at the contested catches. You see how he kind of shields defenders. And he had plenty of contested targets, 24% of them. And if you're catching close to 50%, that's really, really good, right? If you have a lot of contested targets and you're catching like less than 40%, that's where the problem lies. You need to be good at one of them, and at least he's good at catching contested targets. He can create after the catch, good burst. Things that I'm just worried about, and it's a big thing, is the route running. I think he kind of struggles there and needs refinement. He needs precision. He needs to get in and out of his breaks, find the holes in the zones a little bit better. And to me, I want to see, out of any stat or number or whatever, whatever thing I want to see the most out of my wide receivers is their ability to run routes, because that's going to translate best to the NFL. And I think he needs to work on that, which is a big concern for sure. I guess run blocking, I've been reading about it. I didn't really watch too much of his run blocking, but I guess his run blocking is not so great, which, it's like, well, why do we care for fantasy? Well, we care because it means he's going to get on the field more. If you can run block, you're going to get on the field more. So where does he fit in terms of being on the Saints, right? To me, Bub Means is an outside, he's an outside X receiver. That's his spot, right? He's an outside X receiver. I don't think you're going to move him around too much, which is going to hurt his fantasy value. I don't think he's just a pure slot guy. I think he's just going to play on the outside. He's going to have his role for a team. Now, can he develop into more of a field stretcher? That's what we need to ask ourselves. Year one, I don't expect much from him. I don't even know how much he's going to play, right? He could be used a little bit more on kick returns or punt returns, yeah? But what's intriguing about it is you look at the Saints depth chart, right? You look at their depth chart, and after Olave and probably Shaheed, there's not a whole lot that really excites you, right? As of right now, again, it's Chris Olave, it's Chris Olave, and then it's Rashid Shaheed, and their wide receiver 3 is Cedric Wilson. That's who they're putting out as wide receiver 3, is Cedric Wilson. Cedric Wilson is 29 years old, has been in the NFL for 5 years now, has been in the NFL for 5 years, 29 years old. He's never had more than 600 yards. He had 600 yards receiving one year. That was his best year. Even on Miami the last 2 years, and Miami did need a third option behind Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. He didn't even really look that good. So I'm not too worried about Cedric Wilson. And then you look beyond Cedric Wilson, you have A.T. Perry, who I was kind of high on coming out of college last year. I knew he was a project receiver. I'm still kind of high on A.T. Perry. Those three players, Cedric Wilson, A.T. Perry, and Bub Means, I think there's going to be a battle, and it's going to be a battle to watch in training camp about who wins the outside X receiver position. Because I think Olave is going to be the movable piece. You can move Olave wherever you want on the field. That's what you want to do with Olave. Move him outside, in the slot, wherever. Move him all over the field. Rashid Shaheed, to me, he can play outside, obviously. Like, he was kind of 50-50 last year in terms of his snaps between the slot and the outside. But if you have a better option to play on the outside, and then you can put Shaheed in the slot, I think that's where he best fits, just in terms of a vertical threat in the slot, right? So I think Shaheed has a role. He's going to be kind of that vertical threat from the slot. Olave is going to be moved around. There's going to be a battle in training camp. In my opinion, it's going to be between Cedric Wilson, A.T. Perry, and Bub Means for who's going to win that outside X receiver spot. And that could bring value because the outside X receiver is probably going to be on the field a lot. Now, does that mean it's going to translate to fantasy success? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because look at someone like Alec Pierce. Go look at Alec Pierce's game log and look at his snap percentage. Literally every single game last year, except for one, he played over 90% of the snaps, Alec Pierce. And he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them where he played 99% or more. He was literally out there all the time. And he had 32 catches for 500 yards. So just because Bub Means wins that outside X position role doesn't even mean he's going to be fantasy relevant, right? But these are the types of teams to target. The Saints, where you look at the Saints and you're not even excited after Shaheed, you're not excited about their wide receiver core at all. And even Shaheed's kind of like, all right, he's a nice player, but I'm not excited about him, right? These are where you want to target, because if a rookie looks good or is good, he's going to win that job. He's going to win that job. Cedric Wilson's not going to keep him from winning that job. A.T. Perry's not going to keep him from winning that job. If Bub Means is good, he's going to win that job. And then you could potentially find something in terms of fantasy and dynasty value. So there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope whoever requested this enjoyed this. Appreciate it. I'll probably be putting out a few more of these. I might be even making like a full AFC, NFC video version, which goes over every team and kind of these deep dynasty stashes. You guys seem to like it, so, and I like making them. So as always, like and subscribe. That's what we ask for you the most. You don't have to pay for the Discord or anything, but if you could like and subscribe, that would be the number one thing to support this channel. Appreciate you all. Catch you all in the next video.